for years, I'd been able to push it back down, right? To just disassociate from it, push it down. Maybe it comes up as a curiosity and I'm like, oh, here's that thing again, but I'm okay. I'm safe. It doesn't have to happen. I can deal with this and just move on. And that worked on and off for quite a while. But coming out of that back injury, it really set off tons of anxiety and depression because
Yeah.
it was the worst pain I've experienced every
Oh my
day
gosh.
of my life for 4 months straight. So we're even looking into cancer. And that
Oh
really
my
scared
gosh.
me,
That is
right?
scary.
Let's be really honest here. Like I got worried about self-harm, right? That's a big thing that happens in
Oh
the
yeah.
community, mainly because our fear of lack of acceptance, our fear of accessibility to resources, our fear of being unloved or losing our jobs prevents many of us to turn that pain further inside, right?
So very excited to have Erica here on the show. Erica, thank you so much for joining us. I'm very excited as we continue to celebrate Pride Month, celebrating innovator stories, and so excited to have you on the show. A little shout out to Jen, who made the introduction to have Erica here. So very grateful to make that direct. So let's dive right in. Erica, you have worked in different places, especially the role of product manager. I think it's important because nowadays in careers, like we look at the title, I'm like, geez, like I wonder
Yeah.
how this person did it. But you're reminding us that there's constant adaptation. I'm curious for you, when
Yeah.
did you first know that was a skill that was important for you as a
Mhm.
professional and as an innovator?
So I've always had a lot of emotional intelligence. I've always had this ability to talk to people and draw out what's important. As a designer, you have to understand what your client wants. You have to know where they're trying to get so that you can bring about their vision as opposed to your vision. You need to have a vision for them. And in that process, I realized that I had a real gift for talking to people. And it was that being able to be emotionally present, to be soft and listen. These are skills that I was lauded for in my life, especially as when the world thought I was banned. They're like, wow, it's so easy to talk to you. You're so great to talk. You're just so friendly and warm and welcoming. I'm like, I have a little secret I haven't told you. And that has served me so well throughout my life, right? Because it made me stand out as a leader originally. And it turns out that it's just a core part of my being, that sort of softer, feminine energy, right? And without that skill, I would still be probably pushing pixels around on a computer, wondering what I'm doing with my life, right? Stuck at the lower echelons and feeling like all I'm doing is bringing about what other people's visions that I don't feel connected to. So it was that empathy that I have that allowed me to connect to people, which drove my career.
I know you've shared some other fun facts growing up as a child of gay fathers and how you
Mhm.
came out also very early, which I think is very special. Not a lot of people get to recognize their identity and have that confidence and feel safe early on. So curious if you can bring back to your childhood how it was like.
Yeah, so it's been a real evolution for me, right? My father came out of the closet when I was 3. My parents split up at that point. We moved to Florida with my dad. My mom went off and did her own thing for 3 or 4 years, and we saw her occasionally because she's also a wild hippie flower child. And so growing up, I became quickly aware that my father was gay, especially when we moved back to Atlanta, and he moved his partner in with him, who I think of as a second dad to me growing up. When I would spend times at his house at the weekend, there would be drag queens there. That's big in the Atlanta community, even for the 80s, right? Having grown up watching my father come through the gay panic of the 80s, the AIDS crisis of the 80s and 90s, and survive that whole and healthy, thankfully, I was exposed to the idea quite young that being heterosexual isn't something that's has to be that way if you don't feel that way, right? I also started to come to the realization that I wasn't a girl by the age of 5, right? My dad moved me from that school to a Catholic private school. And when we arrived at school, I remember thinking, Dad, why am I not wearing the right uniform? Because we know what a Catholic schoolgirl looks like. She typically got the pleated
Yeah.
plaid dress on, and
Yeah.
I didn't. And he's, what are you talking about? I'm like, why aren't I dressed like the girls? He's, you're not a girl. And that was the first realization that sort of comes with me through the rest of my life. And at the time, there's not really good representation of what trans people are like
Yeah.
out in the world. We don't even have good representation of gay and lesbian people in the world at that point,
Oh,
too, right?
yeah. Mhm.
So it's been there on and off throughout my life. And I've done a lot of work on myself. I've been through tons of therapy to try to solve this problem of being trans, though at the time we didn't have words for that. And so that led me to do a lot of self investigative work. And it's only in the last several years that I finally decided now's the time to come out as my full self instead of just the part that some people know. It was causing me tons of distress, right? It's anxiety, depression, right? I also had a really bad back injury at the time, which I was in the worst pain of in my life
Oh
for four
gosh.
months.
Yeah.
And interesting, a lot of people that go through some sort of traumatic event find that propels them going forward because they're evaluating what they've done with their life.
Wow.
So yeah, I came out and started my transition about 2.5 years ago. It's truly been the best decision I've ever made. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I am the most authentic, best version of myself that I have been pursuing my whole life. I have gone through this process with the broader LGBTQ community where I grew up within the community, where I had great representation in the community, where I had friends in the community, but feeling safe enough to be out as trans took me getting to a point of stability in my life. I had financial stability. I had job security. I had a partner that was able to be there and support me. I lived in the right place. I lived in a big liberal city that made it very easy to have access to resources. Because for me, losing the stability with transition was like a no-go, a non-starter. And that's something that happens for a lot of people. For those of us who wait later in life, that's typically the issues. We feel like there's too much at risk, right? Those of us that are able to transition earlier, it's usually other factors like that feeling of transness is so strong, it's undeniable, and it's causing you a lot of pain. It must happen now.